Good morning. My name is Donna Cooper. I'm the Executive Director of Children First, and we are here today talking about childcare and the crisis in childcare. And what we know in Pennsylvania is that at least 1,600 childcare classrooms have been closed since the start of the pandemic, and tens of thousands of children are not enrolled in those great programs that prepare them for the future. And it also means their parents are having a harder time getting to work. To put it bluntly, Pennsylvania is facing a crisis in childcare, harming our children and undermining the economic prospects of their families. We are here today to highlight the crisis in childcare because as this budget is being negotiated, and in theory, we are 8 or 9 days away from a budget agreement, we have yet to hear lawmakers reach agreement on what's needed to preserve and sustain the Pennsylvania childcare sector, from programs for infants and children to great pre-K programs that prepare our children for school success. You don't have to take the crisis from me. You're going to hear about it today from childcare providers directly. What you see behind me is 30 posters. Those 30 posters are child care providers who in the last 30 days shared with us the number of children shut out of their programs just in the 5 southeastern Pennsylvania counties. But like I said, 1,600 programs, classrooms closed, some of them entire programs, and more than 30,000 children missing the opportunity. To kick us off today, I'm very excited to introduce Shantel Drake. I met Shantel a couple weeks ago, and Shantel is a very important story to share about the crisis of childcare and how it's affecting her family. Shantel's from Philadelphia. Welcome here today, Shantel.
Hello and good morning to all senators, state representatives, executive directors, and overall leaders for positive change. My name is Shantel Drake Murray. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to explain the relationship between early educators' salary and the quality of care that our children are receiving. Yes, I say our children because making an investment in today's and future generations of children will affect the quality and quantity of the rich citizens we have the opportunity to produce. But we must invest right now. And by rich, I do not mean in monetary status. Instead I say rich to mean socially balanced, emotionally stable, culturally sound individuals with an ability to increase promise and economy in ways that were possible and made possible by early learning opportunities given to them. I am a grandmother. I have been assigned in this season to the responsibility of raising my grandchildren. My grandchildren have been a part of the early learning system for about 5 years now. During these years, I have lost count of how many child care workers have said the words to me when I go to pick up my child, "Grandma, this is my last week." When asked why, it's been explained to me in sum that working in the early learning sector does not allow child care educators the ability to maintain, sustain, or create a sustainable basic lifestyle. Operative word here being basic lifestyle. One child care worker explained to me that she interviewed for a position in a fast food restaurant and would be starting at $15 an hour. In addition, she had a second interview with a major retail chain that also offered her $15 an hour as a wage. Well, me being the compassionate person that I am, and wanting to somehow get this educator to continue to educate my child, my grandchild, I went home and I began to crunch numbers and do some figures. Now, by no means am I a mathematician, right? Nor do I work in finance. But I just wanted to help. I wanted to see what it is that I can do to help her stay in the early learning sector to help my grandchildren and the future of our America. So I go home and I'm crunching some numbers and, you know, I just keep saying, I gotta make this make sense for her, right? In order for her to stay, I have to make this make sense for her. And I need her to remain there, part of my granddaughter's educational experience. So I figure out that they make early childhood learning educators make about $11 an hour, some places less, but we'll go with the 11, okay? And that translates roughly to $880 a month, right? Then I subtracted taxes, right? Because we all have to pay taxes, right? And that left her approximately $792. Whoa, I'm doing numbers here, okay? Because I wanted to stay. Then I deducted a monthly TransPass because that is how she got to school to educate my granddaughter. And that leaves her about $696. Whoa, so I think I'm doing great, right? Because she's going to stay. No. Then I Googled the monthly cost of a studio apartment in her area. And I found out that they started at $750. Now, if you were paying attention, you just heard me say she was left with $696. Well, I quickly realized that it just didn't make sense. So I took my granddaughter to her early learning education center the next day and said to this wonderful educator, "Thank you for all that you have done in my granddaughter's life, and I wish that I could do more for you. Here I have an opportunity to do more. That was a lost opportunity, and here we are today," okay? Throughout the years, I have met dozens of early learning educators that were struggling to make ends meet with just the early learning education income and could not do so. So they began working other jobs in addition to their early learning educator position, which affected their effectiveness with the children that they had been tasked to educate. They no longer can be that effective if they're exhausted, right? Therefore, instead of a fun, energetic, motivated, caring, patient Miss Teacher, the children were met with an exhausted Miss Teacher that still cared, but had difficulty keeping the same energy and zest for the career path that she had once been so passionate about, and maybe still is. Our children deserve the complete experience of an educator fully invested in helping them learn how to navigate this new world. I just refuse to believe that we live in a world that places higher value on fast food chains and retail than the education and wholeness of our children. In sum, I earnestly implore you all that can make a difference. If we do not invest in what is important now by raising the wages to ensure that those caring for who we care about can do so with fidelity and compassion while maintaining a reasonable lifestyle, reasonable at best, then we have subscribed to throwing away an opportunity to be proactively preventative instead of interventative in the lives of our children. Thank you so much.
So obviously we need parents like Shantel in this legislature. She's exemplary, and I want to just say there's not much more to say after that, but nevertheless, she made the point that you can get a better pay at Target or Sheetz or Wawa today than raising our children. So we have two early childcare providers with us today that will tell you the stories of what's happening in their early childhood program. This is not a Philadelphia issue. Those 1,600 classrooms are statewide. One of the providers with us here today is from a suburban Philadelphia childcare program called Today's Child and Warwick Childcare, and that's Erin Rinn. And another person who's with us here today who runs a child care program is Tiffany Chavous. And Tiffany runs a great child care program only blocks from my house in Philadelphia. We'll start with Erin and then go to Tiffany.
It's okay. Like Donna said, my name is Erin Rinn, and I'm the Director of Operations at Today's Child Learning Centers in Warwick Child Care, where we have child care centers in Chester County, Delaware County, and Philadelphia County. And I've been in the child care industry for about 10 years. Prior to March 2020, our business was growing and expanding due to the needs of working families. At that time, we had 15 locations serving over 1,000 children. Today, we only operate 9 centers and take care of about 600 children. The staffing crisis has affected the way we operate programs each day. When the telephone rings, we no longer, and the parent wants to enroll, the first response is no longer, when do you want to enroll? It's, let me see if I have the space for you or if I have a spot open. This is due directly as a result of our agency not being able to hire enough staff members. Many of our staff did not return to work when we opened the doors after the forced shutdown in 2020. In the last year, we've seen our staff leaving the childcare field completely for higher paying jobs in different industries. The past year, we've actually increased our starting salary by $5 an hour. I'm a larger agency, so I've been able to make economies of scale in my programs and been able to offer this to staff, where other smaller providers have not. We've also added education and new hire bonuses to every advertisement and recruiting effort, but we're still short-staffed. We have 15 different teaching positions open right now. In previous years, we've had backup staff, so if a staff member called out, I had someone to replace them. Now, admin staff, directors, and myself have been filling in for staff that needs a day off or that has a vacation. Based on the capacities of each of my centers, I could serve over 200 more children if I could hire enough staff members. And the problem is not only finding staff members, it's finding highly qualified, trained individuals. The services that we provide include education and learning. Children with developmental delays and special needs are coming in the door more frequently. We need staff that have an early childhood education background to identify the children with developmental delays and are able to handle the challenging behaviors appropriately. These are not skills that come easily without proper education and training. The highly qualified teachers are the reason that the children in pre-K programs have significantly better outcomes than children that do not have a pre-K background. These children numerous studies have shown that these children in pre-K programs have higher high school graduation rates. They were much less likely to get arrested or go on welfare and be unemployed as adults, and they earned significantly more than children that did not attend a pre-K program. The highly qualified teachers are the important piece of these successful outcomes. The teaching job is a difficult one. Any job with less responsibilities and higher pay is very attractive to these teachers, even if it's outside the field. In order to attract staff, I need to be able to pay them higher salaries and offer benefits. We're also in a position where parents are struggling to make ends meet, with the gas prices rising and inflation on everything. Increasing our tuition will only hurt these families more. Many of them are on low-income families and getting government assistance to pay for the childcare. We need to raise funds in order to pay higher salaries from a source other than our parents, and that's why I'm here. Without attracting and retaining these teachers, we're going to see a generation of children that don't have the advantages of a pre-K program and will be less successful in school and in life, hurting our community as a whole. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I think we can do a little better. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, this is something that I do with my kids. And so because this is such an important topic, if I could just please, I'm going to try and see if it works with the adults, because it certainly works with my 3 and 5-year-olds. And because I'm not the singer, I excuse my voice, but it goes like, hush, it's time for a moment of silence. Hush, shh, hush. It's time for a moment of silence. Hush, shh, hush. It's time for a moment of silence. Silence, hush. This moment of silence is for everyone, all of our teachers, all of our educators, all of our parents, that this very issue is affecting. So if we could just have one more just moment of silence. Again, good morning. My name is Tiffany Chavous. I am a member of the Racial Equity Early Childhood Provider Council, and I am the proud director of Somerset Academy Early Learning Center, located at 719 West Girard Avenue. Between, as everyone has said, education and quality education is extremely important. Between the ages of birth to 5, a child's brain develops faster than any other time. Providing a high-quality child care program is critical for our youngest population to be prepared socially, emotionally, and academically when entering kindergarten. If we are going to stop gun violence, and I just saw many parents walking in for the hearings that are going on right today and have been going on recently, if we are going to stop gun violence, addiction, and generational poverty, it begins now. Quality is about making sure that our children, our parents, our teachers, and the community are creating an environment for children to be successful. When our classrooms are closed due to a teacher shortage, it not only impacts my school, this school in Montgomery County, and the surrounding areas, as you can see, it affects and it impacts our families and the communities across the state of Pennsylvania that currently have more than 32,000 students unable to attend school. We talk about violence, but there's 32,000 children that are not able to be educated. Although Somerset Academy has this space for 30-some children, and we heard earlier that my colleague has a space for 100 children or more, our classrooms, like many others, are closed because of the need for high-quality staff to support the children and their families. We, too, at Somerset Academy have a large special needs population, but because we don't have the teachers, we had to figure out other methods to help and service our children. So we created a science room. We created a sensory room. We had to provide a behavioral specialist at our center because the need was there. And it's not about us, it's about the needs of our children. It is essential for our teachers to have the skills, the preparation, and the ability to support all that is needed. That cannot happen if we don't have the compensation required to offer the best to address trauma, to address violence, to address poverty, diversity, academics, and so much more. The children in the Philadelphia and surrounding communities deserve a quality education. Our children deserve the same quality of care that is sometimes afforded in the surrounding areas, but like we heard, sometimes it's not. Unfortunately, this isn't the case, but it should be. We need to provide teachers with a higher rate of pay to retain quality staff and to grow all of our programs. Teachers need a higher rate of pay for our children to have consistency in the classroom. Having more teachers allows more children to be educated. It allows parents to return to work, as many of our providers and CEOs are saying, you got to go back to work or you're fired. But how challenging does it make it for a parent to have to decide whether they can afford childcare, quality childcare, or if they can afford putting food on the table? Having affordable, quality childcare with staff who are adequately paid prevents high turnover and forcing parents to make that difficult choice. We are all up here transforming, the lives of our youngest children, and we must demand the quality our students, parents, and staff need. Thank you so much for having us here.
So there are 15 lawmakers here with us today. As I said, we've yet to hear an agreement from lawmakers about the how the budget's going to come out for childcare. To be clear, childcare is the workforce behind the workforce. And we have a $12 billion state budget surplus. And we're here today talking about a $2 an hour raise for childcare staff who make $11 an hour on average. And if we had that raise, it would cost the Commonwealth about $115 million. We have a $12 billion surplus. That's 1% of the surplus to enable 32,000 families to be able to go to work and their children to benefit from early childhood education. And we are here today to also say that Pennsylvania's pre-K program must expand. And again, we must pay those employees more as well. And with $70 million, we can add thousands more children to pre-K and keep and retain and attract pre-K workers as well. Pennsylvania has no shortage of funds to make it affordable for parents to go to work and build the future of our children. We're very pleased to have so many lawmakers with us today, but there should be so many more here. We invited the lawmakers who represent these 30 child care centers and many others to be with us today, and we're going to kick off with the great senator from Chester County, Carolyn Comitta.
Thank you, Donna. Good morning, friends. I am State Senator Carolyn Comitta, and I represent the good people and many, many children in Chester County. I want to thank Donna and Children First and also Start Strong PA for hosting this press conference. And thank you to so many of my colleagues from the Pennsylvania House and Senate who are also here today. I'm speaking today as a legislator, but also as a former public school teacher, also as a parent and a grandmother to young children, including a newborn, and including my oldest granddaughter, who just finished her first year of preschool. And my daughter called me in tears about a month ago, and she said, "Mom, there aren't enough spots for Leah to be in pre-K next year. They have a lottery, and this is her number, and she's like 3 people away from getting in." That program was able to find the teachers. They had the space, as we've heard, and Leah will be going to pre-K next year. But this is what we want and we need for every single precious child in Pennsylvania. Our young children represent our greatest resource and our greatest hope for the future. But to reach their highest potential, they need care, education, interaction, and nurturing. Child care and early childhood education professionals are key partners in the healthy development, learning, and growth of our children. They teach important motor and cognitive skills, they foster social skills, and help set our children up for a lifetime of success. We're here today because too many of our precious Pennsylvania children are missing out on the most important learning opportunity of their lives. Too many children, too many child care professionals simply cannot afford to be in this profession, and too many classrooms are closed due to the lack of staffing. It is no coincidence that the average child care teacher makes less than $11 an hour. More than 90% of child care programs in Pennsylvania are facing staff shortages, and more than 30,000 children sit on waiting lists due to inadequate staffing. This crisis is having a ripple effect on our economy. Not only does it impact our children's future academic and job success, but it's also keeping parents from returning to the workforce and pursuing their own career advancement. While there's a lot of division in Harrisburg, we must all come together to prioritize our children, to put children first. Their success depends on keeping teachers in the classroom. If we value our kids and we care about our future, then we must invest in our child care professionals. As you have heard, we are entering budget negotiations with more than $2 billion in federal funding and a multi-billion-dollar surplus. Donna just underscored $12 billion. That's billion with a B. The greatest surplus, as I've heard it over these budget talks, in the history of Pennsylvania was $1.5 billion during the Ridge years. That was a long time ago. Here we are today. Pennsylvania can certainly afford $115 million to fund a $2 an hour wage increase for child care teachers and staff. What we cannot afford to do is wait. Let's invest in our child care professionals and invest in our children's future. Together we can save our child care programs and ensure that all of our children have opportunity, that all of our children on the path to a successful and healthy future. Thank you.
So next to address us is someone who knows the budget backwards and forwards and knows where all the bank accounts are hidden and all the pennies and dimes are stored. And so he understands better than anybody that asking for the resources for our young children, which amount to less than 1% of just the state's surplus of $12 billion, is a worthy investment. I invite to speak at this press conference now the Senate Appropriations Chair, Vincent Hughes. Senator Vincent Hughes.
All right, I promised a couple of my colleagues I'd be brief no matter how long it takes, and that's what I'm going to do. Because quite frankly, the message is very simple. Donna laid out the numbers, but I'm going to underscore them. We have $9.1 billion in budget surplus. We have $2.25 billion in unspent American Rescue Plan funds. We have $2.8 billion in the state's rainy day fund. We have never had these kinds of resources at one time in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Never. Why not focus on the children? And I'm going to correct Donna. We say we care about our children. I'm going to correct Donna one bit, and I'm getting into trouble when I choose to correct Donna, okay? I'm getting into real trouble, but 40 years is a long history, and I think I stand on that. Part of this building is in agreement. Part of this building is in agreement. There's a other part of this building that is not in agreement or has not evidence. Am I right, Matt Bradford? Has not evidenced their agreeance with this issue. And those are the ones that need the attention. It just so happens they have Republicans attached to their party affiliation, all right? Just so happens, okay? But I can tell you this. Every chamber of commerce, every small business person, every large business person, every mid-sized business person in every corner of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, when approaching every legislator, Democrat or Republican, has said that their number one issue in terms of the success of their business is workforce, and connected to workforce is child care. That if they had a strong, vital child care system, they wouldn't have any workforce problems. They wouldn't have to worry about reducing hours or reducing opportunities. They could stand up the business strong, sturdy, mightily. And so, when you go talk to the Republicans, I said it, when you go talk to them, because the Democrats are in agreement on this one, okay? When you go talk to them, tell them your businesses are saying to you, we know what your business is saying to you. They're saying child care. We know what your business is saying to you. Investing in the future is through child care. We know what your businesses are telling you. That stand up a strong child care system and you stand up the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and you propel us forward. Make the right investment. We have more resources than ever in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Either you care about the children or you don't. Your economic choice, your policy choice will reflect your moral commitment. And that's what this is about. So, Donna Cooper, there is agreement right here. At least part of the building agrees. We stand for the children. Ask them, where do they stand? Ask the other crew, where do they stand? Do you care about the children or do you care about something else? Now's the time. Thank you.
It's my honor to be corrected by the fine Senate Appropriations Chair, and I invite any member of the Republican Party to come join us and stand with us today to say that they too are in agreement that we need to put these resources on the table for early childhood. So there's another chamber here, the House, and we also have the House Appropriations Chair for the minority party, the Democrats here, Matt Bradford, someone who knows a lot about child care for his own family and his own community in Montgomery County.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you for having me here, and thank you for having me follow Senator Vince Hughes, the powerful orator from the Senate. The message would be similar if I was speaking ahead of him, but the delivery may not be as strong, and the attire is never going to meet up with the good senator from West Philly. Now, let me just say this, and Donna Cooper is the energy and the power behind so much good here in the Commonwealth for so very long, and she talks about this issue right, and Senator Hughes talks about the importance, the moral issue, the issue of children. But you know what? That message often, too often in this building gets lost. So I'm going to talk about the financial issue. I'm going to try to reach out to my Republican friends on an issue that seems to make sense to them. Donna says that child care is the workforce behind the workforce. Well, I have a question for my Republican friends. We go to small businesses, we go to medium-sized business, we go to large businesses. We go to businesses that pay minimum wage, we go to businesses that are now paying $15 an hour, and Chick-fil-A's that are paying even more than that. And you see the same sign, help wanted. Well, my question is, where did the workforce go? Why are people making a decision to stand on the sidelines when hourly wages have never been higher? because child care is unavailable. This is not just an issue for our children and our parents. This is an issue for our job creators, as our Republicans like to call them. We need a child care workforce, a workforce that is given decent wages and the dignity that comes with work. These aren't people that want to sit on the sidelines. They want to take care of your children to provide for their children. That is probably the most key element of any social compact. These people take care of our kids. And why do they take care of our kids? Yes, so they can get the dignity that comes with a paycheck, but they do so we can go back to work. You know, I remember about 1.5 years ago, there was a cynical argument put forward by some of my Republican friends that the reason why so much of this workforce wasn't going back to work was there was a $300 supplemental unemployment payment that was going out. And somehow that these workers decided, you know what, I'd rather sit on the couch and watch Dr. Oz. I don't know why anyone would do that. They would rather do that than go back to the workforce. Well, that $300 long since expired, but those unemployment signs, those help wanted signs continue to persist. The reality is we need to make child care pay for the child care providers. And we can do that in this budget with this surplus, this historic surplus. Now is the right time to do right by our workers. It's the right time to do right by our children. And damn it, it's the right thing to do for the very small businesses that our Republican friends claim to champion. They need this workforce. Let these people come back into the workforce. Let our child care workers get the dignity of a good, decent paying job, and let us get Pennsylvania back to work, not just with slogans, but with policies and dollars that are right now on the sidelines. Now, over the next couple days, we will come to a final budget. And what we do by the child care workforce will be an indication of what our priorities are. I would argue, as Senator Hughes, I believe, quite frankly said, that there is agreement between Democrats in the House and Senate. And there's agreement with the governor. Now, you could ask yourself what party remains on the sidelines and what party has an obligation to go tell small business, medium-sized business, and big business who's holding back the economy of Pennsylvania. Thank you for having me, Donna.
So we're very fortunate to have two senators with us here today who also represent communities where the child care classrooms are closed. Before I introduce them, I want to introduce the newest member of the PA Senate, Senator Dillon. Are you still here? Oh, he just left. That was his moment. Sorry. Okay, so we're very grateful that he's here. But we're going to start with Senator Amanda Cappelletti, who knows these issues extremely well, having formerly worked in the Office of Early Childhood Development for the state, and then Senator Tim Kearney, both suburban Philadelphia senators here to speak on behalf of why child care needs to be saved in this budget. Amanda.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Children First and Strong Start PA and all the child care providers that are here today. I want to add to something Matt Bradford said before I get started my initial remarks. Small businesses don't just need the child care. Child care is small business and the backbone of our communities. People often forget that child care in and of itself is a business and an economic driver in our communities, and that is why we should be supporting them and investing them. We have the moral obligation for the children. Unfortunately, as he said, falls on deaf ears more often than not. So let's talk about business. Let's talk about small business and economic drivers. That is what childcare more often than not is. It is a small business in our community run by people we know that live around the corner from us, and that's one of the biggest reasons we should be investing in it, because it is a small business driving the economies of our communities. I have a couple of child care providers that are being represented here today and are part of our empty classrooms. Precious Life Ministries, the Willow School, and Wonder Spring Narberth. They're all from District 17, which is in Montgomery and Delaware counties. As we've been talking about, we know that there were many ongoing issues with child care: accessibility, affordability, staff retention. That's what we're talking about. And all of these things were further exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And as businesses reopened and navigated what their new normal looks like, families and childcare providers were still navigating their way through pre-pandemic challenges coupled with pandemic challenges because they're businesses trying to figure out how to often operate in the red, barely in the black if they're lucky. But they're a necessity because many families, they continue to struggle to find affordable and accessible childcare. They struggle to find childcare providers that can keep up with the costs of providing childcare and retain staff. Pre-pandemic issues were still present, and particularly the low wages and the staff retention. And I want to touch on that just a little bit. We've heard that it's about $11 an hour that our workers in this field are being paid. And it's disproportionately affecting women, people of color, and parents. We heard someone, and I apologize, I don't remember whom, I think it was one of our child care providers, talk about, the high quality care provider and what they do for us. I think people often forget that a child care provider isn't just a babysitter. This is an educated individual that has had to go to school for an early care and education degree. And we have some of the highest student loan debts here in Pennsylvania, in the entire nation, but we're paying them $11 an hour. And then they have to continue getting additional education credits to keep up with the newest and latest data and research. And for that child care provider to be considered a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, whatever high quality child care provider, all of their staff have to continue investing in these things, and they may not have the money on an $11 an hour budget to continue their education because they're still trying to pay that student loan debt. That's what, $1,000 a month? I have plenty of it. I'm telling you, it's about as much as a mortgage. Many of you are facing it, I know. So right now, what do we have? We have about 7,000 child care staffing positions open, resulting in 48% of child care facilities with at least one classroom that remains closed, which is being represented, the stuff's being represented back here behind me. And during the 2.5 years since the pandemic started, we've created several short-term solutions to help change and provide aid and relieve the stress of the pandemic. We've applauded Governor Wolf for the one-time $98 million federal funding grant opportunity for child care providers so that they can recognize staff retention through bonuses and further their staff development and recruitment issues. But they're short-term, and they're great for the short term. But what we're here today is to remember that we absolutely must. It is an imperative that we invest in sustainable policies and programs to support our child care providers and families in the long run. Child care providers, families, I'm going to add economy into that. It's an immediate economy boost and a long-term economy boost because we also have a wealth of data and research that shows that children, as Tiffany stated, when children go through childcare, they are more likely to be quote-unquote productive members of society, to my Republican colleagues. So if we invest in that, we do see crime rates go down, a better economy. That research has been out there for over 40 years, longer than I've been alive. Time to get on board. And that first step on getting on board is increasing our child care wages because $11 an hour is not enough. A $2 wage supplement brings us to $115 million, as we've said many, many times. And with our surplus, well, that's an easy one. That's an easy lift. Because when we fund high quality child care, we support today's workforce, tomorrow's workforce, and our future. So thank you, Donna, and I thank all of you for being here.
Thank you, Senator Cappelletti. You know, Donna, I think to me, it's feeling a lot like Groundhog's Day here in the state capitol, because I think since I've been in the Senate, I can't tell you how often I've stood here with these fine folks talking about this issue. I'm Tim Kearney. I live in Delaware County. I represent part of Delaware and Chester counties. I sit on the Education Committee in the Senate, and I'm also the Democratic Vice Chair of Appropriations. So I see this from two different committee structures in the Senate. A lot's been said today. In fact, almost everything's been said today by speakers more eloquent than I. But I just want to hold up one aspect of what we're talking about, and that's the outcomes for children who actually go through these high-quality pre-K systems. We know how important early childhood education is for children and for our society at large. Students do better in school, they're more prepared for the workplace, they're more prepared for social and emotional learning. That means early childhood education greatly benefits society at large. Often in the rhetoric that we hear in this Capitol building, there's talks about my race and what it means to me. And I'm here to say that the we is more important than the me, particularly when it comes to issues like pre-K education. When we spend more on childcare, we save on so many other costlier expenses, from special education on up, everything in between. That's because early childhood education sets up our kids for success. Some say, and I agree, that it's the most important developmental, I can't even say the word, right? That's the intervention that we can make in children's lives. And I can't understand why there are legislators who don't want to make sure that we have teachers in classrooms. In closing, I'll just say it's great to see so many people fighting for this issue, one that's important to all of us, and I'm proud to stand here and join with you. So thank you very much.
So to round up the press conference, we're moving over to the House to hear from House members who are here to support this ask. I want to point out that Representative Davis, Representative Cerisi, Representative Nelson, and Representative Welty and Malagary are with us. Oh, you're going to speak. So they are with us, and then we're going to invite the folks who are coming up to speak on behalf of these child care programs. We're going to start with Representative Zabel and then move on to Representative Schusterman. So, Mike, the floor is yours.
The only reason I'm able to stand at this podium right now is because I have childcare for my 5-year-old and 7-year-old. I could not be doing my job if right now I didn't have trusted professionals taking care of my children. I appreciate Donna and Children First now handling this today, because this is really a great day for my kids, because there's Zoo Day behind us. So I just got some pictures with some penguins and pythons. I'm sending them home to the kids, and now talking about something that's even more important, because there is no professional more important to my wife and I than the professionals that we turn over to our children for 40+ hours a week to take care of them, to bring them joy, to prepare them for the future. And it is our moral imperative, it is certainly a social imperative, that we take care of these professionals and make sure that they are fairly compensated, that they are not struggling. We cannot as a state, and this happens in several areas, but we can no longer afford to rely on generosity of spirit and goodwill to have people stay in these professions, because that's why they're still there. That's why they're still there. And we can't, that is immoral to rely on that. And we have seen now, I have family members who are searching for childcare because of the scarcity of it. We have to make this a more available thing, and we have to do that by investing in the people that are so important to our children, to our future. I could not work here. I know I have colleagues. There are a lot of colleagues. I'm very grateful. It can be hard to be a parent in the house. You have to make a lot of sacrifices. You don't get to see them as much as you'd like. But it's important because I come up here with that perspective of how important childcare is, how important early education is. So I'm grateful to stand with colleagues and with the providers here. I want to thank them and let them know that we will continue to be their advocates until they are paid fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Zabel. I am Representative Melissa Schusterman from Chester and Montgomery counties. So I'm sitting here, what else can I add? I want to add my experience, but first, this really goes out to the child care providers and the early educators. I just want to say thank you for coming to Harrisburg to encourage us to do our job. This is something that should have passed before the pandemic, during the pandemic, or right after the pandemic. So shame on us for not getting this through. Well, as a working mother, my son started his child care journey at 2 months old. And I used to come back from work to go pick them up, and I would be in traffic, I would be cursing, I would be a little bit frazzled, and I would always be greeted by a sense of calmness, a smile, and a lengthy update on how my son was doing. And that happened for 10 years. So you child care providers and early educators were an important part. You were the heart and the rock of my very small parenting circle as a single parent. So I thank you. And yes, we should get you more money. $2 more is not enough. But more importantly, as a society, we need to value small businesses, early educators, and child care providers, because then that is valuing our parents, our working parents, and our children. So I do want to say my son spent over 10 years in child care, and he is better for it. And I want to thank you for what you taught him and what you showed him, because he's grown up, recently graduated college, and I know when I did hear about his handwriting, no one thought he would go in that direction, but he graduated college, and he is a better person for being a part of that world. So I thank you for having my back and supporting me. I will continue to fight to support you each and every day I'm here. Thank you.
I am very honored to introduce my state representative, Representative Mary Isaacson.
And thank you, and thanks for putting this together, and thank you for all the child care workers who have been here and all the supporters. I am somebody who has a degree in early childhood education, as well as political science, and I see that the two meld very well together in this building. One needs to know how to deal with a toddler having a temper tantrum, even if they're a grown adult. So everything's been said already. We really need to make sure that we're having our priorities straight and taking care of those who we entrust our children with, and having our priorities straight, because certainly they're not straight outside where they're having a rally to put guns into schools, and where we're trying to level the playing field and equality and making sure people have a proper education. So we're here fighting for you, and this is the proper investments we should be making. Thank you.
We are so grateful that we have two suburban Philadelphia state reps with us. I'm going to start and ask Representative the great Mary Jo Daley to come speak to us, and one of our newest members of the State House, Representative Gina Curry.
Thank you, Donna, and thanks to all of the folks who work with you, because they visit our offices, we listen to them, and I think you've really made changes, so I'm hoping we can continue to do that. So good morning, everyone. I'm State Representative Mary Jo Daley. I currently represent 7 municipalities in Montgomery County. I live in a small borough, Narberth, which has been mentioned, and that's why I'm here today, because of Wonder Spring Narberth. But I'm here also to support the parents of small children, child care businesses, and their employers, and to make an argument that children in Pennsylvania are losing learning opportunities every day due to closed classrooms. Decades ago, I was a newly divorced mother, and I still remember the difficulties finding child care that I could afford. I was extremely fortunate to find excellent care in my hometown of Narberth, the predecessor of Wonder Spring, and this meant that my daughter was in a safe place after her school day ended, and my workday continued for additional hours. That was nearly 50 years ago. And that daycare, now Wonder Spring Narberth, is still operating a really wonderful child daycare center. So a few months ago, I visited Wonder Spring Narberth, and as we talked about the difficulties they were running into hiring enough staff to fill their classrooms, without enough staff to meet state requirements for the ratio between staff and children. They were hesitant to raise tuition fees as parents were already struggling with the cost of childcare. I asked what the hourly rate was for staff, and my number is going to be a little bit different than what you've heard. And I found that the rate of $10.48 could not compete with the other job opportunities that folks had. So do the math. $10.48 an hour works out to $21,798.40 annually. And that's for full-time 40 hours a week times 52 weeks. It's not a living wage by a far shot. In Montgomery County, a living wage for one adult with no children is $17.87, or $37,169.60 annually. For an adult couple with 2 children, the living wage is $25.31 per hour, or $52,644.80. We have a way to go. The average child care teacher lives in poverty at nearly twice the rate of Pennsylvania workers in general. Affordable, accessible child care is not a new issue in Pennsylvania, but it came to a head with the onset of the pandemic. It's time for the Pennsylvania General Assembly to take action, and we already heard that they have a lot of support to take that action, to ensure that COVID-related learning losses endured by Pennsylvania children are not compounded by closed classrooms. The ask is $115 million for a 2-hour per wage increase. I agree that it should be higher than that, but as a mother, a grandmother, and a legislator, I know that we need long-term, stable investments to ensure that Pennsylvania families, both parents and children, can thrive. Parents need jobs that pay a living wage, children need the stability of a high-quality education, and legislators need to make this happen. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is State Representative Gina H. Curry, and I represent the 164th District, Legislative District in Upper Darby, Lansdowne, East Lansdowne, Milbourne, and a part of Yeadon right now. I am happy to be here today standing next to Donna, because Donna knows before I came on board here just about 6 months ago that I was a fierce fighter for children at every level. This is not new to me, but I can already tell you that I'm tired. I'm not tired of fighting, but I'm tired of the same. And I've only been here for 6 months. This is falling on deaf ears. I do want to give a shout out to Sakia Boone, who is the CEO of Wonder Springs. That's a good girlfriend of mine, and I love to see the fact that there's diversity and inclusion in the early childhood education commitment and dedication to children. I have my own personal story, and I won't stand before you long. But I know when I am a mother of 3, and when I was starting out trying to put my children through a quality education, I was looking all over at where I wanted to put my children, knowing that I couldn't afford where I wanted to put them. And when I did, we were strapped. But I didn't care, because it was the most important thing that I was doing, making sure my children had what they needed. Well, I can tell you that when you don't pay early childhood caretakers the proper wage and more, it also brings up issues that most of us didn't talk about today, so I'm going to bring them to the forefront. It also brings up issues that when people aren't paid well, they don't work well. It also brings up issues that when people aren't paid well, they're frustrated. And when you're working with children, you can't be frustrated. You cannot be frustrated. I have my own personal story of putting my child, my boy, into a very expensive daycare, child care situation on the main line. And at that time, I was a young mother, and I was doing the best, my husband and I, what we thought. It wasn't a very diverse situation, and my son experienced abuse. And I'm bringing this up today because I think it's important. These classrooms are closing, but the reason that I feel like that happened is because those young ladies at that time weren't making any money. They were frustrated. I watched them. This was supposed to be a mainline facility, top of the line. I would drop him off and think to myself, they're not happy. They're not even greeting me. They're not greeting him. So I began to understand, even before I was greeted with that horrible news that day, that he had bitten someone out of his own little cute 2-year-old frustration. But that's how our children communicate. But there were many layers behind it. And so when I began to understand what was going on there, I knew that these young women who were supposed to be taking care of my precious jewel were not being paid. They were not being valued. They were not being given the consideration. And so they sat there every day complaining about their jobs when they were supposed to be taking care of my son. And so we cannot stand for this anymore. Shantel spoke of it in such a beautiful way as a grandmother who is trying to do the best for her grandchildren. But how can you go to work knowing that people are not taking care of your children the best that they can? And I blame it on the wage. Now our workers can get more money, as you've spoken, at Chick-fil-A. And we know Chick-fil-A and these fast food restaurants, but where's the value there? Nothing against the fast food restaurants, but we need to build our children up. We're building a legacy, as Tiffany does every day. She's building a legacy for our children and our future. Pennsylvania, cut it out. We're tired of standing here doing the same thing. I fought for K-12 and as a school board director for 3.5 years before I got here. And the reason is because I had my own pain in my own household behind how my children were treated as early as 2 years old. Stop the foolishness. We're tired. But I will tell you, I will stand at this podium every day until you hear us. And so I thank you, Shantel. I thank you to the other workers that are here. And I thank you, Tiffany, for sharing your stories today, because what's behind us is incorrect. What's behind us is wrong. And really what's behind us is criminal. Thank you, Donna.
That's what happens when passionate parents come together. And we have one more passionate parent, although I have to say, if we opened this up, this press conference, we could have run a marathon probably and gone all day. And so I want to say we have a state representative who had to fight to keep her seat, and she beat the old boys. And that's what we need to fight and win for child care workers. That's what we need to fight and win for our kids. Representative Liz Fiedler.
Hi, I'm State Rep Elizabeth Fiedler. I thought about bringing my 5-year-old maybe today. He is with his grandparents. But then I thought about what would he say. When I drop my 5-year-old off, I see one of these signs on the door of the child care center, and we talk about it. He knows my job, and he says, well, why doesn't the state give more money so there can be more people like Miss K to do a good job, to teach more kids the alphabet and how to read, to teach more kids how to get along with other kids when they're having a fight, which they do, we all do, how to teach more kids how to harness their feelings and find new ways to express themselves. Try to teach more kids about the fact that we are all different and there's beauty in that and there is power, and we should recognize that. My 5-year-old has learned a lot in pre-K. He just finished, and I've been reflecting a lot on his time there. And I think I agree with everything that you've heard, and I think it really is disgraceful, as Rep. Curry said. I think it's disgraceful that as a state, we talk about small businesses, as Chairman Bradford said. We talk about the importance of these things. You hear these words from both parties on both sides of this building, and yet there is a refusal to invest even $115 million in care that's so essential. So essential for little kids like my 5-year-old Louie, so essential for families across the state, so essential for businesses, so essential for people, for the people who do the work, the people who do the work. When we're sitting around the dinner table at night and we go around and say, what was one good thing that happened in your day? Almost always my 5-year-old starts his sentence with, Miss K is like a member of our house. She is amazing. And while I'm excited that my 5-year-old is moving on to kindergarten, I have to admit that we've all talked about the loss that there will be. We all know these child care providers, right, who go above and beyond, who love the kids. You can see it in their eyes. You can hear it in the stories that the children tell about the things that they're struggling with, about how hard it is, and how loving and caring these adults are. I want to finish just by saying I spoke with a woman named Molly. She runs a different child care center in my district. She asked if I would come visit her, and I said, yes, of course. She and her family run this child care center. And we were sitting there. It's very lovely. You hear the sound of like a musician playing kids' songs or children laughing. And Molly looked me right in the eyes and said, it is time for a revolution. And I have to admit that is not what I expected from Miss Molly. She and her family run this lovely child care center. They work incredibly hard. They worked incredibly hard as providers did to get through the pandemic and keep everyone safe, often making very difficult financial decisions themselves, right, to keep the doors open for their kids and their families. And I said, I'm sorry, could you say it again? And she said, it is time for a child care revolution. I am tired of this. I am tired of being treated like we don't matter when we know that we are integral. We're integral to the families and children and their development. We're integral to the entire economy, and yet we are treated like we do not matter. And so those are the words in my mind this morning. It is time for a child care revolution. Thank you. Thank you, Donna.
We're going to thank you very much, everybody, for being here. If any of the press have questions, I'll come over there as we have to give up the steps for the next group. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you to everybody who came. Fight on for childcare.